Hey boys and girls, it's Friday, sunset. What's today? November 15th. Just got done shooting the ladder test for the upcoming hand loading series that I'm doing for you guys. And we've just done powder, not seating depth. You guys can tell me, those of you that are still on the fence about whether or not I know what I'm doing. Do your ladder tests look like this? Notice this general area right here. These are 3-shot groups, guys. All of these, all 3-shot groups. That little guy, that little guy, and that little guy. I haven't measured that yet because I didn't bring a calipers to the range, but I'm guessing it's under 50 thousandths of an inch. Dead frickin' center. We call that a pinwheel, boys and girls. Wow. Hey guys, this is Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today's the day. It's finally time to kick off this Precision Handloading Series. It's March 11th, 2025. Finally getting around to start filming these things. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to do this. This is something that Dale and I talked about last year while we were doing the 7mm Showdown series, and I said to him that, a lot of people are curious about what my, process is for wringing the most out of any given cartridge. And I kind of alluded to some of my testing methods in that series, but didn't really dive into that. It wasn't really about hand loading. It was more so about external ballistics and choosing a cartridge and what matters and what should go into that to make your decisions. And I think that series did a lot of good for most of the people that watched it and ruffled the feathers of a few people that watched it. But I think overall it was a net benefit. And this is something that I was really passionate about doing, but I kind of had mixed feelings about it because, this is something that is of value, like a lot of value. And it's probably something I could make a lot of money doing, but I really wanted to offer this up to you guys to try to help you out, I guess, because I didn't have a mentor when it's 2025, so I'm on my 28th year of hand loading, and my grandfather kind of taught me how to do it, but he, just taught me the basics, and he would never really loaded for precision, so everything I've done since then has been on my own, and I never really had anybody to show me how to do this or make things shoot better. Like, I had to figure it out on my own and spend a fortune doing it. So this is something that I really wanted to do to try to help you guys out and make things easier for you and kind of move you along your the learning curve and try to get all your guns shooting better as a way to I guess establish trust, to show you guys that I'm trying to help you out and I have your best interests in mind. And yeah, I want to sell some custom rifles, and we run a gun shop, so we'd like to rebarrel rifles for you or sell you a custom rifle or whatever. But outside of that, I want you guys to get better. I spent a lot of time being frustrated, and I wish that I had somebody to help me out, and I didn't. So hopefully I can do that for you guys. So that said, I guess a couple disclaimers we should get out of the way. For those of you that are new, this series is going to be very contentious. There's going to be a lot of things that I say that go against what you're hearing from most other channels. Many of those channels are way bigger than ours, but this might ruffle some feathers, but you shouldn't use number of subscribers as a measuring tool for knowledge. Ooh, that's going to piss people off. The guys with the biggest following don't know the most. And the sooner you realize that, the better off you're going to be. And the bigger they are, the higher the probability that they're influenced by money, somebody else's money, to try to tell you that something's good, even if it's not any better than anything else. And we're not at that point where we have people throwing money at us to promote certain things. And I don't know that even if we get to be a bigger channel, I don't know that we're ever going to go down that road, because I'd rather tell you the truth than make a little extra money to tell you something I don't necessarily believe. So there's going to be a lot of things I say in this series. Basically what I'm saying is, if you don't have an open mind, you probably shouldn't watch this, because I'm just going to piss you off one video after another. Because a lot of people are, they're trying to do the right thing, and they're soaking up as much information as they can, and like, well, so-and-so said it's good, so I'm going to do it. Well, a lot of this stuff doesn't really matter, or the amount that it matters is so small that you're never going to get the return that you think you're going to get on whatever that, widget is that you invested in. So I think I'm going to try to keep this video reasonably short, so I don't want to get into too much into the weeds, but I think I'll rev up the screen recording here and just talk about a few things, and then we'll put a bow on it, and we'll start getting into the nitty-gritty on the following videos. So, all right, let's get this fired up. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Okay, so we're going to start with everybody's favorite, back to our Dunning-Kruger slides. For those of you guys that saw the 7 series, you know what this is. This is basically a learning curve that applies to most things that humans engage in. So anytime you try to learn something, you start in the lower left corner of this graph, where confidence is low, wisdom, which is knowledge plus experience, is also low. And then as you start to do something and you feel like you're getting the hang of it, your confidence goes up very quickly. However, your wisdom, knowledge, and experience is still very low. And at some point, everybody's different depending on how far along you are in your journey and how much you're doing this. At some point, you're going to reach Mount Stupid, where you think you know everything. And then at some point, you're going to realize that this is way harder than you thought it was, and your confidence is going to come crashing back down as you gain a little bit more wisdom. And eventually, everybody at some point ends up in the valley of despair, where they think, I'm never going to understand this. And that is really the point where you can grow from. Once you're there, that's when the growth starts. So then as you gain more knowledge and experience, your confidence starts to come back up. And that's called the slope of enlightenment, where things are starting to make sense. And then eventually at some point you get up to, or depending on when you started in your life, hopefully you get to this point. Some people never do. You reach the plateau of sustainability. And the only thing I don't like about this version of this graph is this plateau of sustainability is supposed to flatten out. You see it's kind of at an upward slope. Well, at some point you're growing still, but it's so incrementally small. And if you look at this, the amount of confidence, confidence is increasing as we go up here. The amount of confidence you have when you're a seasoned vet at this, the amount of confidence you have is still lower than the peak of Mount Stupid. So when you didn't know a whole lot and you thought you knew everything, you were more confident at that point than you're going to be years and thousands of rounds later when you get to this plateau of sustainability, because you know enough to know that you don't know everything and that there's still stuff to learn. And just when you think you have it figured out, something else pops up that throws you for a loop. So what I hope is that you are able to identify where you are on this, and then hopefully by the end of it, I've moved you somewhere further along this curve. And then our next slide that I want to spend time talking about is how things work, how things really work. So this is, don't pay attention to the text that's on here just yet, just look at the curve. So this is a Pareto distribution. And what that is it is basically a breakdown of how much certain things affect the end goal. So this curve applies to many, 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 many things in life. And some of you may know it as the 80-20 rule, which means that basically generically, if you have a certain goal, or you're trying to achieve a certain thing, or you have a certain number of people working on something, there's basically a fundamental law that applies to this stuff that says that 20% of the things do 80% of the work, or 20% of the things have 80% of the effect. And then as you get into doing more and more things, the effect that it has is less and less and less and less. And there's nothing you can do about this. This is how it is. So now I'm going to turn this just so it's easier to read. So if we just turn this 90 degrees, what I want you to do is think about the amount of green from a volume perspective. Like, how much does it matter? We look at, basically this is the magnitude of effect on raw precision. Now, this isn't a universal graph that I would say applies to all forms of shooting, just your average hunter, bench rest, F-class. This isn't a universal graph. This is just a generic, if you're trying to make your gun shoot better, here's kind of the hierarchy of things, and in my opinion, what does the most work and has the most effect on the gun shooting smaller. So we have contributing factors on the left here, and then we have magnitude of effect on raw precision. So, number one, the thing that has the biggest effect on your rifle's ability to shoot small, and this is rifle aside. So this is, whether you have a custom rifle or a factory rifle or a competition rifle or whatever. This is just the parts of reloading, the factors of reloading, basically. Not equipment, not any of that. Cartridge selection is far and away the most important and has the biggest effect on how small your gun's going to shoot. And with that, reamer design. So some cartridges have had a lot more time and effort put into making the reamers, designing the reamers and different, versions of the reamers and trying to make it shoot better and better and better and better, where a lot of cartridges are never really treated as a precision cartridge. So not a lot of work has ever gone into trying to make it shoot well. So if you take that cartridge and you try to make it shoot well with a reamer that hasn't really had any work or blood, sweat, and tears put into it, you're going to have a lot more work ahead of you than if you pick a cartridge that has had a ton of work done by, thousands of people across decades. So basically, this is the inherently accurate cartridge theory. There are two groups of people on this, I think. I think there's two groups of people, and one group believes that inherently accurate cartridges exist, and then there's a group of people that don't believe they exist. I'm 100% firmly in the camp of inherently accurate cartridges do exist. I've seen too many of the same cartridges shoot super small and too many of the same cartridges shoot big. So the sooner you realize that that's a thing, the better off you're going to be. Why do I say that? Well, whatever rifles and cartridges you have, and wherever you're at in your reloading journey, let's say you have a certain setup and it shoots X size groups on average. Well, I can tell you, that if you look at the top few here, cartridge selection, powder selection, bullet selection, if you take you have all the guns and cartridges you have and they shoot X size groups. If all of a sudden you get your hands on a rifle chambered in 6 ppc with a reamer that, let's say, doesn't need the brass neck turned, so it's a no-turn reamer, and you put Vihtavuori N133 in it and a 68 grain bullet seated anywhere near the rifling, that rifle is going to shoot smaller than anything you own. Period. Guaranteed. And that's without knowing what you have currently. If you add a 6 ppc to your arsenal, feed it N133 and a 68 grain burger or whatever, and put it anywhere near the rifling, that's going to be the smallest shooting rifle you own. Period. And if inherently accurate cartridges didn't exist, I wouldn't be able to say that. But if you look at the short range bench rest crowd, that's all they use. That's the only cartridge they use, and that's almost the only powder they use. And then they'll use a variety of different bullets, 68 and 80 grains. But the point is that if there wasn't such a thing as inherently accurate cartridges, those guys all wouldn't be using the exact same cartridge. So that it's a thing. And then moving along here, powder selection, I think that has a way bigger effect on the precision potential of your system than people give it credit for. Those of you that saw the 7mm Showdown series know that I'm a big proponent of extruded powders. On average, they just shoot smaller. They're more consistent. The velocities are more consistent, just everything about them. Which, as I mentioned in the 7mm Showdown series, there's a reason all the competition shooters that are serious and spend countless sums of money every year competing and testing, there's a reason they all use extruded powders. They're better. Bullet selection. This is a big one. But as you see, as we go down here, if you think about cartridge selection, the amount of effect that has is basically from this dash up. So this volume of green can be attributed to cartridge selection. Then this volume of green can be attributed to powder selection. Then this volume to bullet selection. Then this volume to seating depth consistency. So you see as we go down here, the amount of effect these things have drastically gets reduced. And in the current market today, with all the people out there doing this and making videos on shooting and gun stuff and people trying to sell you things, nobody's going to tell you this. They're all going to say that whatever widget they're selling you is the most important thing, and that's the only thing holding you back from one-hole groups, and it's bullshit. So this is the way, in my opinion, this is the way this works. And again, it's not universal depending on your discipline, but on average, this is the hierarchy of things. So bullet selection, like you are never going to get a Swift A-frame to shoot as small groups as you will a Burger anything. It's not in the cards for the Swift A-frame to shoot as small as the Burger, period. It doesn't matter what cartridge you're using to push those bullets. That's just the way it is. Seating depth consistency. So we'll go into this more in the series, but I don't know that I believe that certain bullets like a certain amount of jump, but what I do believe is that regardless of the bullet you're shooting, there's a window of seating depth where it's going to shoot well, and then most other places it's not going to shoot well. And those seating depth consistency windows are way smaller than you think they are. So having a consistent seating depth is super important relative to a lot of these other things. Chamber and operating pressure. This is a big one, especially in light of the new 7mm backcountry. I believe, and a lot of people do, that there's a certain window of chamber pressure where things will shoot well or can shoot well and be consistent and repeatable. And in my opinion, that window is about 50,000 PSI to about 64,000 PSI. And you can fray the edges a little bit where some people will get stuff to shoot in the high 40s and some people will get stuff to shoot over 64, like 65, 66, 67, 68. Much over 68, I have never seen anything be consistent. Not comparatively to if you took that same gun and found a load down in the low 60s or 50s. There's a reason that these cartridges and the powders, frankly, are designed to operate at a certain pressure. The market and the industry and the powders are not designed to operate outside of that range that I just told you. So you're trying to force it into something it wasn't meant to do, and it's not going to be consistent. The example I like to use is a cartridge called the 33XC. That's an ELR cartridge that was designed. It uses Peterson brass, and it's a 585 case head like a 338 Lapua Magnum, but it's much longer. It uses 120 some grains of powder, really slow burning powder, and shoots heavy bullets really fast. Well, that case is rated for like 87,000 PSI or some obscene number. And there's people that run it in the 70s, 70,000 some PSI, where by example, with a long, 32 to 36 inch barrel, it'll shoot a 300 grain Burger bullet like 3,300 feet a second if you're up in that 70, 80,000 PSI. But nobody runs it there. Even though the case can withstand it, nobody runs it there. Why? Because it doesn't shoot. Most people have a 33XC. You look at the load data that they're using, they're running it down in the low 60s, like I just said. They're running it, instead of 3,300 feet a second, they're running it down around like 3,150 or 3,080 or something like that. They're running it way more tame than it's capable of. Why? Because it's way more consistent. Charge weight consistency. I think that matters, but how much that matters depends on your discipline and what you're trying to do. The shorter distance you're shooting, and the less precision you require, the less that matters. Same with brass quality. You get, you see our slivers are getting smaller and smaller here. Brass quality, I think that matters under certain conditions, and I'll show you in the series where I think that matters, and why. Primer selection, same thing. There's certain instances where that matters, but overall, that's a very small piece of the puzzle. Neck tension consistency, this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers because there's tons of people putting tons of time and money into neck tension consistency, and in my testing, it's way less important than these other things that are above it. And the example I like to use is like forest through the trees stuff. So like if you picked some cartridge that isn't known for precision, and you're using a ball powder that's the wrong burn rate, and you picked a bullet that's not known to shoot well, and you have sloppy seating depth consistency for whatever reason, and you're running the balls off it at super high pressure, and you're using a powder measure, clunk powder measure instead of a scale, and you're using mixed case head stamp brass that you found on the ground, and like you're doing all that, and then you want to worry about like using a expander mandrel to set your neck tension, or using bushing dies to set your neck tension, or you're weighing components, or like you are completely lost. You're completely worrying about the wrong things. And I see that all the time online in comments and videos, even where other guys are doing this stuff, making YouTube videos, and they're worrying about stuff that has such a tiny little effect on what they're doing, where the thing that is wrong is staring them right in the face, and I can't even watch these guys. And some of them have gigantic YouTube channels, and I literally can't watch them because they don't know what they're doing. And it's painful for me to watch. So just know that there's a hierarchy to these things. What discipline you're in and what your priorities are can change the order of these things a little bit. Personally, I think cartridge selection, powder selection, and bullet selection are always the top three, no matter what. And then everything under that can slide, a couple places this way or that way, depending on what you're trying to do. And on the bottom here, you see component weight consistency, primer seating depth, whatever. So like, if you don't see it on this list, just know that I think it's less important than what is on this list. So that's not good. Like cleaning brass, deburring flash holes. What else? Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff that people do that doesn't have any effect on precision. Like cleaning brass. Some guys wet tumble their brass. That's fine. It makes it spotless. It looks like brand new. If you like that, that's fine. But it doesn't make it shoot any better. So this is about trying to make your stuff shoot better, not how pretty your ammo is. So just know that if it's not on this list, it doesn't have nearly as much effect as you think it does. So I think that probably pissed off enough people for now. It looks like the video's under a half hour. That was my goal. So, yeah, I think that's a good start. And I think right off the bat, we're going to go into the equipment we used and what I selected for this series and why. And then we'll start getting into the nitty gritty, like the processes. And okay, you're going to pick your brass. You're going to pick your cartridge. You're going to do this. And we'll go into how to process the brass step by step, what to do. I'll probably break that up into individual videos because YouTube doesn't like when you show like the complete process in one video, and I try to not get this taken down because this is for your benefit, not mine. So hopefully I can get these to stay up and not get in too much trouble. But we'll go through the rifle we used, the components we picked, and then step by step on how to process the brass and get it ready to load, the loading process, and then the actual testing that I do, what tests I do and in what order and what I'm looking for and why, and will you spend more time on Gordon's reloading tool and look at powder selection and the powders I recommend and on and on. Like, I try to give you guys as much information as I can, so you can take everything you have and make it shoot better. So I think that's it. If you guys have any questions off the top of your head, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. But I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and help a lot of people out and piss a few people off, but that's life. So until I see you on the next one, thanks guys. Tell your friends, like, subscribe, share with your buddies, all that good stuff. We'll see you on the next one.